Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Bean here, and I'm here to bring you my recent reads video. So the past month about has been quite busy. I'm still working on the farm, although I did actually get a new job, so I will be switching now. But I did somehow manage to get through 13 books, and I'm pretty proud of myself for that one. Many of them were audiobooks, but I did also have a readathon. In July, I did the 24 and 48 hour readathon, and there is a video up for that, so feel free to check that one out. I'm just going to get right into it. I'm going to try not to have this video take too long, but we shall see how it goes. The first book that I'm going to talk about here is Naturally Tan by Tan France. Now, this I did give 5 stars to. For anyone who has seen Queer Eye, this is the guy who does the fashion, and this is not a long book, but it's all about his life and how he got to where he is, and it even talks a little bit about Queer Eye in this. And the cool thing about this edition is that it is signed, so that's pretty cool. But I basically read this entire book with Tan's voice in my head from the TV show, and it really gave me a greater appreciation for everything that he has gone through in his life. I think it was very interesting, and it was a very quick read. The next book I read was Unwelcome Quests by Lex Wilson. This one I gave a 2.5 out of 5. And I honestly was just underwhelmed by this book. This book follows a knight and his squire. They're basically trying to go home, but then they just keep getting distracted. And honestly, it was kind of a pointless book. It didn't, I don't know. I was just a bit underwhelmed by this book, and I thought it was a bit lackluster when it came to the plot. And I really just didn't enjoy reading it. This was a review book that I had, and it was humor. It was a humorous book, and I find that the humor is either hit or miss, and this one for me was just a complete mess. So the next book that I moved on to was a series of essays, and that was Consider the Lobster and Other Essays by David Foster Wallace. I gave this one 3 out of 5. It was a very interesting and thought-provoking series of essays, and I think I want to read more of what he has written. Some of these essays included talking about lobsters, which was, I hadn't really thought about where lobsters come from. I don't eat much meat. I do eat a little bit of seafood, but it is very interesting. He actually went into detail about it, and then he also talks about the porn industry and all sorts of other really random seeming things. So it was a good book. I do recommend it. And if you're getting into essays, this is a good one to go with. Next, I did continue the Hercule Poirot series, and I read Cards on the Table, which is the 15th book in this series. I gave this one 4 out of 5, which is pretty standard for Agatha Christie for me right now. This is another great mystery. I just didn't really like the ending of this one. I feel like it didn't fit with the story. It felt very, here's the story, and then the ending was completely different. So it didn't really work for me. But I did still enjoy the story, and I enjoyed the characters. You might notice as I get into the Agatha Christie series, I don't do a lot of talking about each individual story, and that's because some of them do require having read one of the past ones, so I don't do a lot of talking about each of those. The next book that I read I really loved, and that was The Fever King, which is the first book in the Feverwake series by Victoria Lee. I gave this one 4.5 out of 5, and if you want a full review of that, go check out my 24 and 48 hour readathon vlog, because I did give a full review of this and a couple other books in that video. Basically, if I were to go into a little summary of what I thought, the emotional cinnamon rolls in this story, it was adorable. This is basically magic is a fever, and those it doesn't kill end up developing superpowers, and our main character is one of those, and he's trying to overthrow the government that has basically forgotten about the poorer regions of the world that they're living in. The next book I read was also a part of the readathon that I did, and that was Storm and Fury, the first book in the Harbringer series, and this is by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I gave this one 3.5 out of 5. The only issue I really had with this was that I predicted the entire story. I literally could tell you everything that was going to happen. I could tell you who was going to betray them. I could tell you who the love interest was going to be, and none of it really surprised me. There were very few things that startled me at all, and that being said, though, it was a very cute book, and I do highly recommend the series, and I will be continuing it. Plus, it was a chunky book too, so it was a solid story, and she didn't gloss over anything. She actually went into details where you wanted them to. The next book I read was a graphic novel, and I read Cellies, Volume 1, and this is by Joe Flood and Davis Stuart II. I give this one 2.5. This wasn't what I was expecting. In all honesty, I didn't do a lot of research on this beforehand, but looking at the cover, I really thought that this was going to be a book with zombies in it. It's not. It's literally a story about a retail store, about a cell phone store and the people that work there. So, I mean, it was kind of cute, but I found myself so bored. I was just so bored the entire time. There is some great rep in this for different cultures and different races, LGBTQIA+, all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't very exciting for me, unfortunately, and I will not be continuing with this series. The next book that I read is a continuation of a series that I started either a year or 2 years ago, and that is Birds of a Feather, which is the second book in the Maisie Dobbs mystery series by Jacqueline Winspear. I did give this one 4 out of 5. I thought that the characters really held up well. They did really hold their own quite nicely. And the plot was interesting enough. It was a bit slow, but it was still a good story. This takes place in the 1940s. Maisie Dobbs was a nurse in the war, and she has come back home. She is probably in her late 20s, and she has basically opened up this investigation business, and she goes around and does private investigating for people. And this story, she is sent by one of the well-known in the cities to go find his missing daughter. The next book that I read was The Raven's Tale by Kat Winters. Now, this one, it has a gorgeous cover. I can't get over this cover, and it's really shiny here, and I'm sorry for that. But I only gave this one 3.5 out of 5. This book really didn't live up to what I wanted it to. All I knew about it when I went in was that it is a Edgar Allan Poe story where Lenore is a person, like an actual person who is his muse. And he's rejecting her and all of this. And I was so excited to read a story about Edgar Allan Poe, but found myself super underwhelmed and just annoyed. I was so annoyed with Edgar and with Lenore and with all of the characters here, basically. I didn't like them, and that kind of threw me for a loop, I guess. Overall, this was a well-written story, but I just didn't enjoy it, so this was not one of my favorites. I have debated bringing it down to a 3, but for now I'm keeping it at a 3.5 because it did hold my attention. Alright, the next book that I read was Pardonable Lies, the Maisie Dobbs number 3, by Jacqueline Winspear. I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5, and I really loved this book. I enjoyed this so much, and I really think it might be my favorite in the series so far. It really showed just how clever our main character is. Maisie is a very clever character. This wasn't a long book. I think this is shorter than the other two. I really think that this one showed us more about Maisie than any of the other ones have really yet. The next book that I read was actually a poetry book, and that was To Make Monsters Out of Girls, Things That Haunt, number 1 by Amanda Lovelace. Now, most of you know Amanda Lovelace from her series The Princess Saves Herself in this one. This is one of her new series, and it's just a duology. I have both of them, and I will be reading the second one this month, so August. It's a little different because it actually talks a bit more about self-sabotage and unhealthy relationships. So it is very traditional of what we know Amanda Lovelace to write about, but I really enjoyed this one. I gave this one 5 out of 5. I have a feeling that I will always give her poetry books 5 out of 5. I just identify with them so much. They're so raw, they're so rich, they are amazing. I love them so much. The next book that I read is Dumb Witness, which is Hercule Poirot number 16 by Agatha Christie. This one, I gave 3.5. I really was underwhelmed by this one. I didn't really like the way that it took the story, but I did enjoy it overall. I don't know. It wasn't my favorite. We'll put it that way. It was not one of my favorite books. I liked the fact that there was a dog in there, and I did enjoy the mystery part, but it just wasn't my favorite. So this is probably the lowest I have given an Agatha Christie book so far, but there's always going to be one. And the last book that I have read that I will be talking about in this video is The Rage of Dragons, The Burning Number 1 by Evan Winter. I gave this 5 out of 5 solid. I think this is my favorite book of this month. Oh my gosh, it was so good. This is an epic fantasy that is an African-inspired revenge story. So basically think Game of Thrones meets Name of the Wind. And I mean, how can you go wrong there? It was so good. This book was just one big adventure, and I'm so excited for the next one to continue. The ending kind of broke my heart. I want to know what happens next. This book takes place in a world where a group of people, they are called the Omehi people, have been fighting an unwinnable war for about 200 years. And so basically people are trained starting at a very young age to become warriors or to become gifted. It's 1 in every 2,000 women are born gifted, and these gifted women are able to call dragons. There are dragons in this book. And she is teamed up with a man. There's more, it's like 1 in every 200 men or 100 something. I think it's 1 in every 100 men are able to absorb the power that she can send out and transform into this big, strong, fast killing machine. Think of like they just chock them full of steroids and then they grow, and they are probably 3 times bigger than a normal human, and then huge, just solid. Their skin is impenetrable, that kind of stuff. And then everyone else is just thrown at the enemy in hopes of protecting these 2 people. So our main character has no gift. He is not able to do any of this. He is just determined beyond belief. He doesn't want to be part of this war. He wants to get out. He wants to marry this girl that he's in love with, and he wants to leave. And then his father is killed. And so he basically starts on this revenge journey in order to become the greatest swordsman to ever live. He just goes and he becomes this amazing warrior, but he's from the lower class, so he never has the respect that everyone else has. And honestly, I could go on and on about this book. It is so well done. It is intense. It is fierce. It is violent. It is full of dragons. It is full of magic. And I just cannot recommend this book enough. As far as my favorite book of the month is, in case you couldn't tell, it was The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. And I am so disappointed I now have to wait until July of next year for the second book in this series. I don't know how long this series is. I don't know if anyone knows. There isn't even a summary or a title for the second book. I'm very upset about this. I have feelings. And my least favorite book was probably Uninvited Quests. I didn't enjoy that one really at all. So yeah, that's about it. As far as what I'm reading right now, I don't have the dust jacket on it right now. I'm reading My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. I am this far into it, and this is one of the books for my newts for this month. Rage of Dragons was also a part of my newts, and so I am very excited to say that my newts have gotten off to a very, very good start. Yeah, I think that's all I have for you guys today. I went through that really fast, so I hope you guys enjoy. Feel free to check out my blog if you are looking for any of my full reviews on these books. I did have a pretty good reading month overall in July, and I'm looking forward to what I can get through in August. So if you like what you see, feel free to give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you want to be notified whenever we post new videos. Hit the bell icon below. We post videos Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And that's all I have for you guys. Leave a comment down below. What have you been reading? I want to know. So I'm always taking new suggestions, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye!